Hello and welcome. I'm Terry Roberts with Destinations International. We are the trade association for convention and visitors bureaus, and we are so excited that you joined us today for CVB's Curators of Community Knowledge Networks. So I just want to take a little moment to do some housekeeping and let you know that Elaine Rosquist and Kate Skidmore have joined us, and they will be monitoring our question board. So throughout the discussion today, if you have questions for our presenters, please just enter those as they come up during the discussion, and we will take those at the end. And I know that many of you will be eager to understand how you're going to get your CMP credit, and that will come in a follow-up email along with the recording and the slide deck next week. I would also like to thank and welcome Chauncey Keller with ePro Direct. ePro is so generous to sponsor our webinar each month, and we will welcome Chauncey at the end before Q&A to talk to us for just a minute. But let's dive right in. I am really excited to introduce everyone today to our panelists, Melissa Riley and Rob Hampton. Melissa is the Vice President of Convention Sales and Services at Destination DC, which is the official convention and tourism corp for our nation's capital. And she is a 19-year veteran of our industry. And most recently, what I think is really cool, and I know that Melissa will go into this a little bit, she has been a real visionary in her destination behind Destination DC's Asset Intelligence Project. And it's an initiative that really aligns DC with the city's government economic development organization in an effort to really drive growth within business sectors. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today on behalf of our industry.
Thank you.
And also Rob Hampton, Senior Vice President, Convention Sales and Services with the Great Visit Seattle Destination. And Rob is Senior VP there, and he is really in charge of his team, both for Destination International and domestic leisure travel, along with meetings and conventions. And Rob also brings more than 25 years of really progressive sales leadership experience in the industry. He was previously Vice President of Sales for the Austin CVB. I think that both of these fellow panelists and really good industry friends are really progressive thinkers, and they're both active volunteers and hold membership and leadership positions in many industry organizations that really drive our industry forward. So they're great panelists for this conversation today. So welcome, Rob.
Thank you.
So here's our roadmap. What we really hope to be able to talk about today is that CVBs are really curators of these community knowledge networks and take you a little bit beyond just thinking about CVBs as someone who helps you find a hotel or an offsite venue, and really examine how they can help you reach into these local knowledge hubs or the intellectual capital of their communities to enrich your programs. And then I think both Melissa and Rob will kind of explain in more detail how they're really a conduit and a connector for this really differentiated meeting experience that we know everyone is really trying to tap into. So Melissa and Rob, I think planners probably are really well aware of meeting attendees acting a lot more like leisure travelers, and they're so interested in what's going on in a destination experience. They have a desire to experience all there is to offer. So they know you're a conduit to activities and leisure, things to do before and after the conference, but it really goes much deeper than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and kick us off. And I think, Terry, the biggest point that Rob and I want to drive home is that destination marketing as a concept is evolving. To your point, we really used to be focused on destination attractiveness. And you see this all the time. Cities are promoting the great shopping, the amazing hotels, the beautiful, unique venues and green spaces. And while this is important, what we're trying to do is create a complement to that destination attractiveness. You know, quite frankly, Rob and I were having a conversation and looking through a lot of the convention trade publications, you see advertisements for destinations, you know, nearly in every single one. And you could cover up the name of that destination, and likely most people wouldn't be able to tell one from the other. So last year, you mentioned earlier the asset intelligence project that we kicked off out of the Destination DC house. And this really started as a concept that we had worked and developed and built out on the international front. And Destination DC, we have a division that focuses specifically on international meetings and large congresses. And internationally, this concept of using local assets to help enhance a meeting or a program has been pretty well established. And what we wanted to do was take that concept and adapt it for both international and domestic meetings team, and quite frankly, for anyone of any size. And in future conversations, I'll kind of take you on that journey a little bit. And, you know, you'll hear quite a bit throwing out knowledge hubs or knowledge networks or intellectual capital, and they're pretty much synonymous with each other. But first, I think why I'm really excited to be a part of this webinar today is to partner with Visit Seattle, because we have the Washington to Washington thing going on today. But Rob and his team at Visit Seattle have really done some amazing things with this event innovation forum. And I'll kick it over to him to kind of talk about what the impetus was for that idea.
Thanks, Melissa.
So before we go to Rob, can you just expand, because I feel like we throw these terms around, intellectual capital or knowledge network. So maybe we should just define them before we jump to Rob.
Sure. So basically the concept has stemmed from the fact that we aren't experts in whatever your respective industries are. If you're a medical meeting or an educational focused meeting, if you're something corporate and tech driven, you know, we're hospitality experts. But what we really want to do is be the connector to those people that are experts in your particular field. So for business event strategists, we want to give you the opportunity and the ability to take your meeting in a more strategic direction and align with those assets in the city. And quite frankly, what we want to do is shift that focus and shift that conversation to having the business event strategist choose a city based on what the assets are that are a complement. So we want to give you access to leaders in your field that are respective only to our destinations. We want to showcase influencers that could be speakers or panelists. And one of the things that, you know, this is really what Rob is doing exceptionally well, is that experiential design. So take a meeting out of a traditional venue, like a convention center or a hotel space, and get them out into the field. So onto campuses, into labs, onto universities, and give them that firsthand experience. And that will really kind of, you know, showcase the unique attributes of a destination that'll give your meeting a new twist and that competitive edge as meetings are competing against each other more and more nowadays. So what that really translates to for the meeting planner, the business event strategist, is hopefully an increase in sponsors, an increase in attendees, an increase in exhibitors from those assets that perhaps wouldn't have attended your meeting otherwise. And basically at the end of the day, that hopefully will help contribute to an organization's bottom line.
Well, that's a perfect explanation, Melissa, and a real great intro, I think, for Rob to talk about this really cool stuff that's going on and the really neat things that are happening in Seattle. So Rob, some of our participants today might have actually seen that great article that Skiff did back in October about your inaugural event innovation forum last fall. So maybe you can just tell everyone a little bit about the event and planners' reactions to it.
Great, thanks, Terry. Before talking a little bit about the event, let me just also say that, you know, as I have conversations with Melissa and some of our other peers, DMOs around the country, you know, we really find that our greatest takeaways are usually outside of our industry. So we like to learn best practices and then apply them to our industry. So our team here at Visit Seattle, looked at this and thought, how can we provide the same type of practice or resource to our business event strategists? And we did come up and we created the Event Innovation Forum. We refer to it as EIF. And EIF is a platform and community for the business event strategists to engage and learn from Seattle's trailblazing companies, and of course from one another. So EIF was definitely built around knowledge share sessions. These are like mini summits, on-site tours, dinners with top executives, telling their brand stories, et cetera. So all of our knowledge share sessions were held in places like Boeing, Filson, Expedia, and Canlis. So the slides that you're looking at here, the top top left-hand, our clients took part in a very interactive session with an exclusive tour of Boeing headquarters. This was their Boeing jet sales mock-up area, and the Solution Studio and the Center for Alliance for Airline Excellence. So this was it was a great exercise in the importance of first impressions and removing points of anxiety to the customers. So again, this was an exclusive behind the scenes look at Boeing. In the upper right-hand corner is an image from the Filson, and there was a knowledge share session from this great, very successful outdoor company, Outfitters, a 100-year-old company, and we learned from them how to leverage a new global audience, all while keeping their authentic brand intact. So this is something that many associations are faced with their memberships demographics changing. So it was, again, another great look at how this outfit company is remaining relevant. And then the bottom left-hand corner, we visited the largest OTA, Expedia, and the team at Expedia, which included the chief product officer, again, high-level executives taking time with our business event strategists, gave the group an overview on how tools like virtual reality, insights, feedback, and technology help to make a better understanding of customer experiences. And of course, we can't bring a bunch of business event strategists and hospitality folks together without having a little bit of fun. So that bottom right-hand image is from Canlis Kitchen. Canlis is a Seattle legend restaurant. It's a James Beard award-winning restaurant. And they shared their family's history and approach to the unexpected as key philosophies and useful for meetings and events. So we received great feedback from our business event strategists. And this is a way that we felt that we could introduce the concept of using some of the local resources to help enhance and move their meetings forward. So all in all, a great success. As you mentioned, Terry, Skift picked up this program. We were very excited about the great exposure that we received from Visit Seattle. But again, I think it was a really great way to start the conversation with our industry on how we can leverage community resources in all cities to make sure that the meetings industry remains relevant and it continues to move forward. So great success. This was our inaugural event, and we have another one planned in September.
Wow, Rob, so cool and so inspirational, and hopefully whetting the appetites of a lot of folks that we have joining us today for, some really interesting things that you can do. So, Melissa, I'll turn back to you to say, if a planner is interested in tapping into these kind of assets and connections, we know this is not something that is a simple internet search, right? This begins with an in-depth and really an intimate conversation with a destination expert. So if a planner does want to consider tapping into this type of intelligence, when should they start the conversation, and what's really essential?
Yeah, well, the conversations should start immediately. And what Rob and I would love to see is this incorporated into the RFP process. So the planner being more proactive on their end to find out what a city can do to assist them. And I think that no matter what depth and breadth of research a destination has, there is somebody that can help liaise and put them in touch with these local contacts. You know, in the case of DC, our research is rather in depth, and we actually hired an agency to go in and do a deep dive into content. We produced fully accredited white papers and created some sales tools that our team can use when talking to business event strategists. And I think what's really interesting that a lot of people can take away today is, what is the relationship between a destination and their economic development agencies? And this is both public and private. So for us, we work very closely with our city government, and our city government has an individual who's a liaison to the hospitality industry, but then there's also liaisons for other major sectors within the destination. And this has been an immense help to us. It's we do a very good job from the DMO world in telling our city governments what hospitality means in terms of taxes and impact to a destination. And this has only made them all the more helpful as we kind of transition down this road. And again, in the case of DC specifically, our city government developed a 5-year economic strategic plan. And this had really focused on specific market sectors. And so we took that information and aligned our strategies with the city government. So looking at 2 established markets, medical and education, and then 2 emerging markets, tech and then biotech pharma. And so together with the city, we are creating messaging that transcends all different industries. So it's not just government, it's not just hospitality, and then it's not just these respective 4 fields, but it's across all disciplines. And these talking points are really getting that conversation started. You know, our city government will help us with meeting and greeting clients. They'll talk about how the government can help them and liaise with other agencies or other resources. And, you know, I realize that this is kind of a lot of detail and background, but it helps kind of hopefully helps the audience understand the legitimacy of the content and the resources that we as DMOs are able to put forward. And I think one of the great assets that you can use from your DMO, and whether it's a formalized ambassador program or something that's a little bit more fluid, having an ambassador program is really the key to success, because an ambassador program typically is like a consortium of local industry leaders. And again, it's throughout all different disciplines. You could have industry leaders in the medical field in very niche markets, such as, you know, pediatric cardiology, just as an example. But these ambassadors are really a local resource within a specific field. And they're the ones that we rely on, and that the business event strategist can rely on to bridge that gap. Because again, we're not experts from the DMO side in any specific, you know, niche market. So we need to rely on people who can help us understand what's important, what are challenges and what's emerging trends within specific fields. And so they help us speak the language of that specific industry. And so I think, again, having those open, frank conversations from the start and eventually evolving into having an outline of what you're looking to do and the creativity that you are looking to incorporate into a redesign of a meeting or an event can only help that conversation.
So Melissa, this really pushes planners probably out of their norm of, you know, in the bid process, you know, looking rates, dates, and space and, you know, logistics, and saying that a lot of this doesn't begin in the servicing of the event, but really has to come up front. And like you mentioned, really you make your decision based on what a particular city has to offer in terms of destination assets.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, great point.
And you know, it is, it's important to kind of have a paradigm shift within our entire industry of thinking a little bit differently. You know, as our destinations evolve, as the world continues to evolve, so will meetings and events. And so how do we keep them innovative and fresh and new? And how do we help you get a competitive edge against, possibly a competitive association or organization that puts in a like-minded conference. And so that's our intent, is to help you redesign and reinvent your program and create something that is really specific and special to a particular, region of the country or region of the world.
Really interesting. So Rob, let's turn back to you now and say, all right, so Melissa's really whet their appetite, saying this is interesting to me. So now, how do I go about it? How do I find out? As a matter of fact, it's already one of the questions on the board. Gretchen Yoder is specifically saying, how would a planner even find out what is in a city, right? And how can CVBs provide some of their top companies and sectors? So I guess I would turn back to you, Rob, to say what tangible resources are available from the CVB to assist, and then, what kind of information should a planner be ready to share, and can you give them some key questions maybe to ask?
Sure. I think that, before moving on, I think that Melissa has done an amazing job in DC with this program, and many of us at DMOs are very envious of that program that she's put together. And several DMOs have either, started a program, have a full program in place. So that's the first thing you need to ask, is what is available. Great job, Melissa. We can all learn from you there. I think that, going back to our EIF program, one of the questions that we surveyed these 15 meeting planners when they were coming in for this program was, to describe innovation and describe the obstacle, any challenges or obstacles of implementing some new initiatives. And the biggest thing was, trying to get their leadership and their stakeholders on board to new ideas. So I think that is one of the first questions that I would ask if I was a meeting planner myself. What are your stakeholders? What is their appetite for change? What is their appetite for new innovative approaches? As Melissa mentioned, the meetings world is changing constantly, and we all need to keep up with it, and that's exactly why we put this program together. So, the tangible things, again, some of the resources that bureaus or DMOs can offer are, vary from DMO to DMO, so just ask the question, what is available? And there, it's a very formal program like Melissa has, or something that we can tailor to your needs. So getting to your needs is, again, starting in the RFP process, understanding the attendee profile, and not just understanding, but digging in a little deeper. What are you trying to accomplish, not only in your overall program, but in your sessions, and how can that align with, and how can we help align some of our local influencers to help, with your meeting sessions, et cetera. So, I think it's definitely from the very beginning, two-way conversation, learning, from each other, and then deciding how to move forward as we approach community leaders.
And I think, Rob, if I can jump in, it's really, as this concept continues to mature within our hospitality industry, and we experience a shift in the way that both from the DMO side, the supplier side, and the planner side, it really is the responsibility of both of us to have this conversation, because it's clear that this is a new concept to all. So an event strategist might not be aware that these are some questions to ask. So again, it's our responsibility as a DMO to be proactive in that conversation, and vice versa. If you do have an innovative association or corporation that is a little bit more progressive in their thought processes, that's, again, putting that responsibility on each of us to have that open two-way conversation. And it really is just a very frank and open to design, open to horrible ideas, and open to really good ideas. And, you throw it all up and you see what sticks and what you can then, sell, quote unquote, to your leadership to kind of ease them into this process a little bit more if you have somebody that's apprehensive.
That's great. Well, I know you've whet the appetites, because I can tell that by the question board. So we're going to get to that. Melissa, these are some examples from DC that I thought you might just want to share with the folks because they seem super interested.
Sure, thanks. So as you see, these are samples of our sales-specific collateral, and these are bifolds that, again, are really used in trade show and sales calls, things along those lines, and they're really 30,000-foot views of some of the highlights that are available in the city. Like, for example, you see meeting in America's most educated city. So they're full of accolades. They're full of very high level things to, again, just whet your appetite on what is available in the city. And, you know, these are a complement to these fully accredited white papers that I had mentioned earlier. You know, we partner with some other industry association to get continuing education credits for the study of these concepts within Washington, D.C. And this continues to evolve, and our team continues to educate themselves and educate our planner community on all of these great things that we have to take advantage of in Washington, D.C. And I think if you look for resources like these, you know, again, maybe they're not as mature as we've built out here, but again, these resources are typically available in some way, shape, or form. So don't be afraid to think out of the box, and, you know, make sure that you let your DMO help and create something that's really unique together. One of the great compliments that I had recently was our city government was traveling to India to promote some leisure activity, and they actually requested that we provide them the biotech and pharma in the capital region as resources for themselves as they're looking to attract organizations to regionalize or headquarter their offices in DC. So the intent was for meeting professionals, but it obviously has a scope that reaches beyond what we had initially intended. So that was a great compliment there.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing these and also pointing out that we've obviously invited you and Rob as panelists because you're very progressive and you're doing some really cool things and certainly exciting, but that all cities have connections in the destinations and, like you said, may not be as formalized, but you can start a conversation and you can use the CVB, the DMO, as the conduit. So I'd like to wrap up our formal session, then we're going to take our Q&A. So we would just, from Destinations International, like to invite you to empowerMINT.com if you're looking to connect with someone like Melissa or Rob and start this conversation. You will receive an email, and you should check your spam because quite often it will get launched or stuck there. So you will receive half an hour in Domain G, Meeting and Event Design, if you're interested, from Event Industry Council. And we hope that you will join us next month. We are going to talk about the unique relationship between CVBs, hotels, and GSOs or NSOs for their insights and resources and how you can put all these partnerships together. So we look forward. That will also be in your follow-up email, a link to register for next month. So before we get to Q&A, so I'm going to ask Elaine. I know we have a lot of questions. Some are similar. You might want to group some. We'll give her just a second to do that. And I'd like to introduce our sponsor, Chauncey Keller, just to say hello, give her a minute just to have a brief introduction, and then we'll go back to Elaine to have questions for Rob and Melissa.
Great. Thank you so much, Terry. Just wanted to pop in and say hello and let you know that ePro, we are a hospitality marketing agency that was established about 17 years ago. And about 3 or 4 months ago, we established a new program specifically for associations and organizations. It's called Booking Community. And Booking Community is a travel booking website, just like any other popular online booking engine. However, ours is stocked with unpublished rates and that are only available through a closed user group. So we offer associations and organizations a way for the members, employees, everyone affiliated with it to book hotel room rates that are 30 to 70% lower than any other hotel website or public online travel website like Expedia, Hotels.com, Orbitz, et cetera. And there's over 800,000 participating hotels worldwide. And so you can pretty much find a hotel anywhere in the world at a large discount. So members get free access to unpublished hotel rates. and it helps drive membership value and retention rates, and the association generates a new revenue stream through the revenue share program. So it's free, it's easily integrated into an association or a CVB or any organization. And I will also be sending a follow-up email with private access that you can jump on and check it out yourself, as well as my email address, so that if you're interested in your association or organization to get set up, we can get rocking and rolling. So thank you very much. This is Chauncey Keller with ePro Direct and Booking Community.
Thank you, Chauncey. All right, Elaine, I know we have a pretty full question board, so I'll turn to you, if I could, to field some questions for Melissa and Rob.
Okay, great. Thanks. Wonderful information, Melissa and Rob. Thank you. Lots of questions here, kind of consolidating some of them, but a lot of interest. And, you know, one that did come up specifically that did want something kind of specific was any ideas on how to navigate approaching those types of destination assets, for example, universities, when if you're working for a planner, they're requesting hosted or sponsored functions. So kind of specific, but any suggestions or examples you guys have of planners approaching those different destination assets?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. You know, I think that's really where your ambassadors can come into play. And even if you don't have, say, for example, in Washington, you're targeting somebody from, you know, Georgetown University, and you don't happen to have a direct contact there, there is typically somebody, we all know how networks work. There's somebody that knows somebody that can help us put into play. And I think that's where you can really use your ambassador to be an advocate for what you're trying to achieve. And so sitting down, having face-to-face meetings with those ambassadors is really key. And very similar to what Rob had outlined, you know, they want to understand what your session content is, what is your budget. So explain all of that to the ambassador and kind of let them be an extension of your voice and an advocate for what you're trying to achieve, and make that introduction. And then from there, you know, you can kind of take over it and get a little bit more specific with whatever your particular need is, whether it's in terms of sponsorship or actually getting out on site to create something that's a unique complement to your meeting or event.
And I think that, you know, the ambassador programs are great, and also the convention services department and your salesperson at the DMO. Again, as Melissa mentioned, that we might not have the exact contact that you need, but we can get you to them. Again, the power of networking. So our convention services team, you know, here at Visit Seattle, are really charged, you know, with understanding who some of those key people are in our community, so we can align appropriately. So again, the staff at the DMO can be a great resource to start there.
Great, thank you. We did actually, Melissa, have people that wanted a little more specifics about your ambassador programs, obviously without too much detail, but how do you keep those industry leaders engaged? Just some top line.
That's a great question. And, you know, much like Rob reinvented his traditional, you know, advisory board into this great, innovative, progressive EIF, we're in the process of doing the same with our ambassador circle. And traditionally, what we had was probably a list of about 40 to 50 local industry leaders, and they were, you know, a wide breadth and depth of industries. And what we have started to do is transition that into a far more aligned market segment circle. So as you look at innovation capital technology, we do specific recruiting events, or we have an outline to complete for all 4 sectors, but doing these recruiting events for each particular sector, for education, medical, biotech, pharma, and technology, and bring those people into, you know, a typical reception style environment, and explain how we need their help, how we want them to be an extension of our team and be, you know, an extended messenger of what we're trying to achieve. And so therefore we, you know, we'll meet with them we used to do quarterly. Biannually seems to be a little bit more fitting for what we're trying to achieve, and keep them up to date on our Knowledge Hub or our Asset Intelligence project and how they can help us. And I think one of the greatest, I guess, compliments or advantages that we have is when we have a true success story of somebody who has extended their time and their resources to help us win a bid. And that testimonial in its own right gets people engaged and wants them to, helps them participate and be excited about the program and want to stay involved. So ambassador programs are ever evolving. Sometimes it's not just individuals, but it's how a meeting or event can extend a legacy in a city. So all of these will continue to, I think, evolve as the meetings industry evolves and the needs of specific associations and corporations evolve.
Great. That is wonderful, Melissa. And, the two of you, Rob and Melissa, you might have touched on this. I just want to be certain because we did have one of our attendees ask again, just to reiterate. So in the RFP, is there anything that now they should, these business event strategists and putting these RFPs together to indicate that they're interested in these type of programs? Do you have any suggestions on how they would, short of just reaching right out to their CVB rep, but how would they kind of want to document that in an RFP, within their RFP, I should say?
I think, very similar to, very similar to how they outline all of their other needs, to talk about what how they've experienced success, possibly in other destinations, what they're looking for. So it would be just, another, chapter of that RFP, just like what they're looking for when it comes to space and dates and rates and everything else, outlining some expectations there.
And I think, Rob did a great job of covering this earlier, but looking at what is the demographic of your attendee? What are the challenges that the association or the organization is facing? What are the session topics and the content design? What does that all look like? And I would urge you to put in that RFP, ask the question, what is unique to your respective city that is going to make this program different and out of the box? And I think that, that broad-based question right there will kind of open the door to this conversation and allow us to provide, some of this content that wouldn't otherwise be normally put into an RFP that looks, at very, preliminary dates, rates, and space. Because I think that's what we're all trying to achieve. If you look at the EIF that Visit Seattle put together, that's something that, I certainly can't take people to the Boeing campus as much as I'd like to, and I'm certainly going to steal that idea from Rob on the whole EIF, as I've told him time and time again. But, it is the uniqueness of the assets in your respective cities that's going to open the door to something really creative and innovative.
Great. I think that wraps it up, Terry. And thank you, Melissa and Rob, for the questions.
Elaine,
thanks.
I saw a couple others that I just want to maybe call out. Elaine answered this question, Rob, and Melissa, but I think that she answered it direct in the question box, but I think some other people might be thinking it. And it is this term, business event strategist. Is that synonymous with meeting planners? Some people aren't familiar with the term.
It's actually PCMA. If you just attended their Convening Leaders Conference, that is how they're referring to meeting planners these days, is business event strategists. So that's, as I understand, how they're referring to meeting planners. So PCMA.
Great, wonderful.
I think they're trying to evolve and encompass a lot more of what traditional meeting planners do. It's other than just finding a venue and putting, does a U shape fit in a room, and does, do I need a charcuterie plate? It's so much more encompassing the term business event strategist of what those professionals do on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, last question. So Melissa and Rob, we have someone on the line that I think might be very similar to many of our attendees. And she's saying that she is an administrative assistant who arranges small destination meetings, right? So do you have to be a big association planner to, put something like this together? And, how would she get started? And do CVBs even care about working with small meetings? I know this haunts us, so I wanted to give you a chance to address it.
The answer is yes, yes, yes. We care about all meetings of all sizes. It's so interesting to me. We get this question all the time that, oh, I didn't realize I could use you for, my board meeting or a smaller conference, or, even a fly-in for a congressional visit or something along those lines. And, I'll kind of, speak for DC specifically, but, you look at the makeup of our team, and I just finished a presentation, so I know these stats off the top of my head, but 60% of our team is dedicated to smaller in-house meetings. And 40% of the business that we make up within Washington, D.C. Is, a smaller hotel only, maybe something that's using one room in our convention center. So we absolutely cater to all shapes and sizes. And as Rob had touched on earlier, both of our convention services teams as well can help you if you're only looking for a special event venue for an evening, and you don't have an actual meeting in the city. We can certainly help put you in touch with our members or our assets in the area that can help, that don't have room nights associated with it as well. So we are all things to all people. At least we try to be.
And, and I'll echo that. I mean, Melissa, we've been talking about this for a very long time. Our team here at Visit Seattle, we have 4 people dedicated and truly experts in that small meetings market. So we're turning to DI to help us, or Destination International, to help us get that message out. But that is absolutely the case here as well. And most DMOs, not only for ambassador programs, EIF programs, but the whole menu of programs and resources that DMOs offer for 10 rooms up to that big citywide. So please use us.
Yeah, this is, I think, the purpose of these webinars is really to be able to educate planners not only on their pain points and creative new opportunities, but to really focus on how CVBs can help you. And so, Melissa, I'm going to throw out a stat. So 86% of our audience stayed on all the way through Q&A. So that tells me that you guys hit it out of the park. So once again, on behalf of Destinations International and the Convention and Visitors Bureau industry, I would like to thank Melissa Riley and Rob Hampton for their participation and for being really innovative leaders. So thank you, Melissa, thank you, Rob, and thank you everyone who joined us for the webinar. You will receive a CMP certificate. You will receive a link to the recording and the PowerPoint slides as well.